Oh, is that running now? Welcome to Behind Enemy Lines. So tonight we have Ben Bergquam back on the show. He's one of my favorites in the whole country. And Ben is going to talk about some of the new developments, some of the crazy things he came across, right? Cartel cemeteries, musicians in the street in Mexico where decapitated heads were across the street because of all the violence. And we're also going to talk about April 30th at Bourbon Street. We're hosting an event, myself, Ben Bergquam, and Vander Steele, who travels all over from the Darien Gap, Mexico, up to Chicago as well. The three of us are going to talk about from the border to the backyards of Chicago. Then we're also going to have a panel of local Chicagoans that are going to talk about the impact of this illegal immigration on their communities. Someone from Chicago Red, a couple of Hispanic pastors. So I'm going to show a couple clips that Ben sent to me. They're new clips. After these are over with, Ben will be on and we'll start the show.
So it's not just the drugs, it's not just the human trafficking, it's even small business. These guys are musicians, how to make a living. They're out here on the middle of the streets doing their music because the places they used to play aren't open now because the level of violence here in Culiacan. That's how all-encompassing the cartels are down here. And right across from the street corner where these guys are playing their music was where the human head was left from the cartels who chopped this guy's head off while he was still alive.
When he got murdered, they left his head within this narco mensaje, a narco message, where they were accusing him for being part from Los Chapitos. And
so this was
what's going
guys.
to happen to all Los Chapitos.
Wow.
And that sign is like a threat. If you work with Los Chapitos, you're gonna get your head chopped off.
We got a mall right behind us. We got shopping centers over here, apartment buildings over here. This is in an affluent part of town. Just leaving the head out there for everybody to see. Let them know the cartel's control. And if you work with the wrong one, your head will be up on the sidewalk too. And just to put it in perspective, I didn't realize this. It's the first time that I've been in Culiacan. Where the head was left and where the guys are playing music is right down there at that intersection. Where our hotel is that we're staying is right here. That's how insecure this city is. And this is one of the nicer parts of town. I came up here, I was like, oh, great hotel. Little did you know that a block away from here, a human head was left on the sidewalk. Imagine that. Imagine raising your kids not knowing if there was going to be a human head left out on the sidewalk in the morning when you walked out. That's the fear. I've been to some crazy places before, but this has to be up there as one of the craziest. This is a cemetery. These are all mausoleums dedicated to cartel bosses in Culiacan, Sinaloa. These aren't houses, these are mausoleums, tombs, like the tombs of Egypt for the pharaohs, except these hold the narco kingpins, and each one built larger to one-up their competitors. It truly is unbelievable. The amount of money that the cartel makes. They have so much money, they don't even know what to do with it. To the point where they build million-dollar mansions to be buried in. Monuments to some of the most evil people that have ever walked the earth here in Sinaloa, Mexico. All propped up by a government that's as corrupt as they are. This is the gas station where two National Guardsmen were gunned down. In fact, the two vehicles you're seeing in this video, one was here and one was here, both cartel vehicles. National Guard came up, they tried to approach them. They were firing back, and the two guys died right here where I'm standing. You can actually see bullet holes in the building over here where the gunfire went. This whole building got shot up. All of these buildings got shot up here. But this is right in the middle of the city. And this is the level of violence that every day can and does happen. It just kind of shifts. Right now it's a little further north, but every day they're having killings out here. They just dropped a body this morning. They killed 2 others yesterday morning. On the road we were driving down yesterday, right after we got done with our hits, there was a kidnapping on the road. And the crazy thing was, we didn't even know about it till we got back to our hotel, saw the video. We drove past it. There was no police presence. There was no people out in the street saying there was a kidnapping here. The people live in such fear. It's like living with Stockholm syndrome. They live in such fear that they don't say anything. And it's no wonder. This is nuts. We were talking to Aaron, our guide here and local reporter, and there were, just to put it in perspective, there's been over 1,600 kidnappings this year in Sinaloa. 0 prosecutions. 0. So if you see a kidnapping, you don't say anything, because you know there's going to be no punishment for the people that were doing the kidnapping. The only thing that can happen is something bad to you. That's what the people live with, the fear of kidnapping and death. And the crazy thing, talking to Aaron, it's death isn't the biggest fear. It's becoming one of the missing that's the biggest fear. So your family can't even mourn you. And there are thousands of those cases here in Sinaloa and across Mexico. And that's the people that the Democrats are supporting. All of these idiots out there protesting President Trump, protesting ICE. All of these guys are protesting in support of the cartels. On the way out of Culiacan to the Chapitos headquarters, you've got this, and this is what you see everywhere you go where you've got the cartel in operation, these shrines to Santa Muerte. Basically, they pray to the devil. They put their candles out here, send their prayers to the devil for their actions that they're committing. That's who the cartels worship. This is the evil that has to be eradicated. We pray against it in Jesus' name. We cast it out. We invite the blood of Jesus back into this place, into this country, around the world. And we stand against this evil in Jesus' name.
Welcome back to Behind Enemy Lines. So that was pretty interesting, folks, right? So in this segment, we're calling it, is Illinois a lost cause? The reason we're saying that is you just saw what Ben was going through down in south of the border, right? We have our politicians in Illinois, the Mayor Johnson, Pritzker, are embracing this stuff. There was a guy that Venezuelan that was arrested 6 times this week. I don't know if you saw it. 6 times.
Yeah.
Right? And he got out 6 times. They finally are locking him up, and he's doing armed robbery and all kinds of crazy stuff. And this stuff is coming to Chicago. It's already here, but it's going to continue to get worse. And you saw these mausoleums and stuff, right? This crime with the cartels in Tren de Aragua is by far multiples of what organized crime was.
Yeah. A lot of money laundering going around, too. I mean, with the NGOs propping this whole thing up, the big issue is Illinois, and I think probably California and New York, they're creating laws that are making it hard for ICE and Homeland Security to find these people. Like in Illinois, they changed that driver's license law so the illegals can have a license indistinguishable from citizens.
Ben's on.
What else, Terry? They made it a human rights violation for anybody in a real estate transaction to discriminate based on immigration status. Yeah. They made it a law that where they can change their name after 3 months. Yeah. Right?
So they're embracing this crap, and that's what they want here. Looks like we got Ben on there. Hey, thank you, sir.
What's going on, guys?
Hey, what's up, Ben?
Thank you for squeezing us in, because you're all over the world traveling and stuff, so we really appreciate your time.
Ben, you saving up for one of those mausoleums, huh?
Yeah, man. Jeez. No, you know
that
what?
was crazy.
I can't take it with you, so I wouldn't waste my money on that anyways. Just got to get my heart right. So. That's unbelievable, though.
That's
Yeah,
crazy.
you know, because I don't know if you heard what we were talking about. The cartels, the Tren de Aragua, these guys are going to by far overshadow organized crime, the mafia and stuff.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Oh
by
yeah.
far, that they have.
They
more
already
money.
have.
Yeah, they have more money, power, control. You know, they just haven't infiltrated as much into the local governments yet. They are.
Yeah, in America, they haven't. In
Yeah.
Mexico, where
Yeah.
I just came back from, they're at every level. I mean,
Yes.
like the statistics down there are just out of control. It's
Yeah.
just to give you one example. In Sinaloa, the entire state of Sinaloa, there's been 1,600 kidnappings this year. Out of that, I just give you guys a chance to venture a guess how many prosecutions.
Yeah, I heard it was on your video. It's on none.
Yeah, zero.
Well,
Zero.
I don't know that they're not embedded as the mafia once was, because we were just discussing this, Ben. Like in Illinois, and I'm sure it's the case in California, New York, you know, Washington, wherever. Our state has created laws, like I was describing. We changed a law about driver's license, where non-citizens can have a driver's license that's indistinguishable from a citizen. Then we have where they can change their name after 3 months, and then they can impound their documents so that nobody can look into them, even authorities. The federal government can't either. You know, they can hide their address. And then we made it a human rights violation for anybody in a real estate transaction to discriminate based on immigration status. Terry and I have found that, you know, Catholic Charities have funded millions and millions into placing these illegals into apartments because of that
You
law.
can't use e-verify, which
can't
is
use
the whole
e-verify.
purpose
Yeah,
of
well,
e-verify is to
and think about
verify.
this. I mean, California, I came from California. They've got the same law over there. It goes even further, and it may also in Illinois, but where it's a crime now for police to even ask the question. So if you're
like
in
that.
law enforcement, you can't even ask. But like you said, if you're a property developer, if you own a string of apartments or just some houses and you rent them out, you can't ask, well, what happens if that guy or gal gets deported tomorrow? Well, now you're on the hook for that lease. So it's just everything about this is backwards. But you're right to boil down the question or the what's happening there. There's no question that same corruption that exists in Mexico exists here. We have every layer of our government has been corrupted by the cartels to some extent.
Yep.
It's just not to the extent that it has been down in Mexico, but it will be very, very soon.
Yeah,
and the amount of money that is coming in, it's just, it's no wonder that, when you got billions of dollars, you can buy just about anybody off.
Unfortunately, the only difference now is that the cartels don't have to pay off the Pritzkers and Johnsons. These idiots are just teeing it up for their politics, right? I mean, there's corruption behind the scenes, but they're making it easier for these guys just because of their politics.
Votes.
Yeah, and there's a couple sides of that. So some of the people are paid off; they're corrupt. Pritzker doesn't need the money; he's a billionaire, but he's doing it for the power. So it always comes back to one of two things: it's money or power. Mm-hmm. And so for some of these guys, that's what it is. But it's all infiltration from the outside. It's the same reason why we have people out there marching for Hamas in the streets. It's because the Muslim Brotherhood and CARE and all these Islamist jihadist organizations have spent years infiltrating our country, and they have people in positions that make decisions now. And the same is true for illegals. The sanctuary idea, to a lot of people, that's kind of a novice thing over the last 5 or 10 years. But that concept actually came out of Chicago, actually out of that church we went to, the Lincoln United Methodist Church, and this pastor, Reverend Lozano, this idea came from Chicago. So this has been 40 years in the making. This isn't something new for these guys. They've been infiltrating our society for years. So for somebody like Pritzker, honestly, it would be harder now at this point. It's so ingrained in Chicago politics and Illinois politics that for a Democrat to go outside of that, it'd be a death sentence for them, both politically and potentially literally.
Yeah, Alderman Ray Lopez is the only one. You met Ray. You
That's
interviewed
right.
Ray.
That's right.
And I give
that's
that,
right. And
that
that's
guy
what.
lots
And you
of
see
credit.
you see what they're doing to him.
Yeah.
I mean, a guy who checks every other box as a Democrat. It's like, but he thinks for himself and realizes this is a bad idea. And it's like, oh no, now he's a sellout, and now we've got to destroy him.
So Ray, if you're watching, so Ben, I was going to get Ray to speak with us on the 30th. I think that he got pummeled so much by hanging around with you and I that day that it's probably worse than him speaking out. Yeah, he's not. He's
Wow.
not. I'm kind of bummed, Ray. I've been calling you like forever, and I'm disappointed in you, buddy.
Yeah, I'd
So-
love to have him. I mean, he is. That's the only way you save the Democratic Party if you get sane-minded people
Yeah.
like Ray Lopez to actually take it back over. Otherwise, that party's dead, and it may as well be dead.
So Ben, you've been covering this illegal immigration thing for years now. Been down to the Darien Gap. I mean, you've seen every which way of this thing inside and out. I want to ask you, because of some of these blue states that have not only brought in all these illegals because of their sanctuary status, but like we mentioned, legislated to pretty much hide these people and keep them from accountability or the federal government finding them. What are you hearing? Are you hearing that ICE is able to do their job, or because we don't hear much on that front? Like, the headline is always that they're sending people to El Salvador and this person shouldn't have been sent. But is there any indication that we're having trouble because of what these blue states did before Trump got into office?
Yeah, and in
Absolutely.
fact, our next episode of Law and Border, which airs next Saturday, is going to highlight that. So it was the first 3 operations we did in Chicago, New York, and Baltimore. And the biggest problem we have right now in America are activist judges and the policies, the laws that are in place, sanctuary policies, and protect illegal aliens from prosecution, from deportation. So what is actually happening when it comes to deportations is such a drop in the bucket compared to what needs to happen.
Yeah.
It's a losing battle if we don't change the policies, and that's what President Trump administration. I was out with Emil Bovee on that ride along. He's the deputy assistant attorney with President Trump, and so they are looking at ways to undo this. But you look at the left going so far as to say, I mean, think about how insane this is. You've got a known MS-13 member that gets caught, gets deported back to El Salvador, back to his country of origin. He's here illegally. And you have Democrats in America and judges in America that want to bring that guy back to this country. That is how insane this is. So, yes, the biggest problem they have, ICE has right now is because, I think most Americans, when President Trump won and we heard mass deportations, I'm hoping for, you're going to the Roosevelt Hotel in New York, or you're going to the shelters in all the way across Pritzker, all these places that Governor Pritzker and Johnson put up illegals in Chicago, and we're just going into those buildings, we're picking up the illegals that came in, and we're shipping them out. That's not even on the docket. I mean, most of those guys have temporary stays. They're working. That's one of the things that President Trump's working through to get rid of the 18-month stay of deportation on these guys. And I'm hopeful that that's going to happen, and then we can start rounding those people up. But those guys aren't even registering yet. They're having trouble going after rapists and murderers and getting sanctuary jurisdictions to not get in the way of those people being deported. And you've got activists. One of the biggest problems we have, most of these people that they're picking up are with administrative warrants. So you can't even arrest the person unless they give you authorization to enter their house. They can actually open the door. They can be standing inside their house. It can be the person, the illegal that you want to pick up. And unless they give you the ICE officers authorization to come in or they step out themselves, ICE can't do anything about it. Well, guess who knows that? All of the leftist activist organizations, Catholic Charities, all of these traitors to our country. And what they're doing now are seminars in every blue city across America, training illegals on how to not get arrested. And so that's happening. So there's a whole push now in the administration to move towards criminal warrants. So then you can bust down the doors. But again, you've got to play that balance of busting down doors and giving ammunition for Democrat media to attack you on versus picking up the really bad guys. So they're doing this tightrope right now of basically trying to get as many of the really bad guys off the street to show just how pathetic and disgusting the Democrats are that are trying to protect them, and getting rid of these terrible laws that are in place to block them from being able to do their job. So short answer to your question, it's a major problem.
Yeah, I sent you an article. I don't know if you saw it in local in Chicago. They're going to start filming, and they're filming at ICE raids. Did you see that? And they mentioned when you were in here, but they didn't mention you. Mentioned Dr. Phil right? And so they're filming it. They're trying to use that to get the sympathy of the rest, of the rest of the country. And then, if I remember correctly, I think when you went out in Chicago, you only had one arrest, right? Was that for the whole day? I think.
Yeah.
I know Dana.
My team personally,
Yeah.
there was multiple teams that were out that day, but my team personally only had one.
And Dana Kennedy from the New York Post was here, and she went out with the team, and they only had one arrest. And she said the exact same thing to you. It's frustrating. They're standing on the front porches. They're knocking. The Venezuelans are looking out the windows, just looking at them, and they can't do anything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's disgusting. I mean, it's such a slap in the face to the sacrifice of everybody who has spilt blood for this country, that we have traitors in this country that think that that's okay, that you can have an illegal alien criminal, somebody who invaded our country, who's here without authorization, who's taken advantage of our system, and they can just mock our law enforcement from their window or from their front door and basically just spit in their face. And you've got the mainstream media, you've got leftist activist groups, you've got politicians who are celebrating that kind of behavior.
Well, on that note, I mean, Ben, you've been all over the country. One thing that concerns me is not just with the immigration thing, but certainly that. You mentioned the legislation. I worry that we're in a constitutional crisis, because what I'm seeing from Illinois, and I'm sure that's happening in other blue states, I know it's happening in California, is lawfare from the Democrat majorities. And in Illinois, it's a super majority. I mean, we have more than half representation in both houses of the legislature, and Pritzker, one of the most powerful governors in the country, and they're creating legislation that is counter to federal law, and they're really towing the line on this stuff. And I feel like it's getting closer and closer to conflict in that sense. In the other areas you've been in, blue states, Democrat states, are you seeing something like that where we're getting a little dangerous here?
Yeah. So the way I term it is, we're in post-constitutional America in blue states. The Constitution doesn't apply, and what has to happen, it's also one of the conversations I had with Emile Bove, is that this has to go to the Supreme Court. It falls under federalism. There's a separation of powers. There's a supremacy clause that says if it's a right that is given to the federal government to adjudicate or decide on, that the supremacy goes to the federal government. A state can't make a law that undermines or supersedes the federal government. And so on all of these cases, all of this immigration is federal government. And ironically, these same jurisdictions were fighting when states were like Texas were actually trying to do the federal government's job for them. When the federal government under Joe Biden was undermining our Constitution, Texas stepped up and said, well, if you won't do it, we will. That went to the Supreme Court, and they said in most cases, you can't do that. That's a federal issue. The federal government has to decide, even when the federal government's breaking the law. In this case, I 100% believe that when this gets to the Supreme Court, most of the cases, outside of Amy Comey Barrett, who's been an absolute
disgrace.
An absolute shame. Outside of her turncoating, I think most of these
must
cases
be some dirt on her.
I don't get that. But to answer that question, there's no question. The blue states are passing laws that go against not just common law, but against our Constitution. Yeah. And I think if they're adjudicated properly in the Supreme Court, it goes back to supremacy, and all of those laws go away. The big thing, though, it's the same thing in Mexico. Until we get prosecutions of politicians, nothing's going to change. And the same thing goes here in America. If you're a politician and you are knowingly undermining our Constitution, you should be prosecuted. And until that starts happening, I don't see this getting fixed.
Now if there's no
punishment for Governor Pritzker or Governor Newsom in California or any of these scumbags like Mayor Johnson, they're just going to continue to do it and get worse and worse and worse.
What a constitutional crisis is when you have the individual states deciding which federal laws they feel like following or not. So, for instance, immigration, another one, and I brought this up before, being sarcastic but with some truth to it. Illinois, New York, California, they're all selling marijuana illegally as a federal law. We should send the DA and shut down every weed shop until they follow the law and help us get the illegals. And then we'll let them, break the federal law of selling weed again.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's this slippery slope of injustice, the injustice system where we've allowed, we're going to let the states decide on that issue when the federal government's already decided. And I'm a states' rights guy. Honestly, I would like more power back to the states outside of a few basic things: our military, our borders, and our votes. I think, all of that stuff is, and I'm still a states' rights guy when it comes to deciding how we vote. But when it comes to deciding our elections, determining our borders and securing our borders and fighting wars, that's the federal government's purview.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I would like more states' rights, and where states can decide, individuals can decide, and even beyond states' rights. I used to live in California, and we lived in the conservative valley, the Central Valley of California. I think you should get back to even local control, where the supremacy goes back to the people. When it's, again, and this is how it was supposed to be. If it's not expressly written in the Constitution, the federal Constitution or the state Constitution, it's your job as a citizen to decide what's right and what's wrong for your communities. That's what we need to get back to. But what they're doing is going beyond that and saying we're going to go against the Constitution. We're going to go against the laws of the land that really make us a society. If you don't have, and on both of those counts, on immigration and on votes, if you don't have those things secured as a nation, you don't have a country. And obviously the left understands that. And that's why these communists, you got Antifa and all these communist organizations that have this unholy alliance now with BLM, which is another communist organization, who are now teamed up with Hamas and 15 to 20 million illegals across America. That's the enemy that we're really facing. We talk about the cartels all the time. The cartel's bad, but it's those guys, it's those traitors in our own country, along with all these activist groups and along with the United Nations. Those are the biggest threats to the future of this country, for sure, no doubt.
Yeah. One of the things that's really been pissing me off lately is they're talking about due process for these illegals, right? We heard about it all week. Due process.
Yeah.
And I was labeled.
They're not citizens. How do they have due process?
I know.
Yeah, I was labeled a domestic terrorist, right? 2 years after January 6th, and I didn't know, and Matt's letter that he sent was because I was a local school board parent, or because I peacefully attended January 6th. So I've been an American citizen. I was born here my whole life. Somebody decided to label me as a domestic terrorist without any process, without telling me, without responding back to Matt Gaetz saying, "Why did you put him on this list?" They just fucking did it out of the blue. But now we're having Democrats cry and whine about due process for some illegal criminal and letting them, they don't even deserve our rights, and no one's complaining about us. And then all of a sudden, after the letters went from Gaetz and Troy Niels, somebody decided to take me off the terrorist list. That's great, but nobody should have the power to put an American citizen on a terrorist list or take it off unless there's some process and transparency to know why you're doing it. And what do you need to do to get off of it?
Well, they need votes, Terry. They need votes, so they're going to try to keep
and it really, to me, this really gets
possible.
back to a biblical thing. This is, this is a version of what's right is wrong and wrong is right, and they have scales over their eyes, and they accept truth for a lie and lie for a truth. It's the same thing with the transgenderism. It's all this. It's good versus evil. It's God versus the devil, and you can see what side they're on when they will not give you a U.S. citizen due process, but they will demand due process for someone who doesn't deserve it, who's here illegally, who should have no due process. Then that's what you have. You just have lawlessness. And again, we have a post-constitutional republic, and that's really, if we continue down that trajectory, if Kamala Harris had won or stolen the election,
we were done.
I really thought this country was going to be done. And
absolutely.
honestly, even where we're at now, we're not out by any stretch. We are just starting the fight to get these things back under control. I mean, it's a very, very dangerous time for this nation.
It is.
And yes, no illegal deserves due process. You have the right to go home to your country that you came from before you broke into our country.
Yeah, they're not. They broke the law to be here. That they're criminals by definition. But I mean, what's the answer here, Ben? Because I think like the biggest thing, a lot of the evidence that Terry and I have reported on, has been through FOIA investigations that have uncovered all this basically money laundering through NGOs. And so you see Trump dismantling something like USAID, and you hope that is, a real a bullet towards the enemy. But what is the answer? Is it that? Is it uncovering where the money's coming from and stopping that? Is USAID is that a big victory, or is there a lot more to go?
It's a small victory.
Yeah, it's a little part of a big problem. And I'd get back to kind of the last point I made. This is the spiritual battle. First off, the Christians of this nation, the real ones, not the fake ones that want abortion and want transgenderism and all the other sin and want illegal aliens in our country. The real Christians have to step back up and take this nation back.
Yeah.
And part of that is getting your life right and realizing where, because if you don't have that part right, it's very hard to decide what's right, what's wrong, what's moral, what's not.
What does Jordan
and then
Peterson
once you get beyond that, then yes, there's a couple things that have to happen. What you guys have done behind enemy lines, and not the fake Antifa one, the real one that's actually fighting the Antifa scumbags, is part of that. The FOIAs you guys have done are unlike anybody else, exposing the truth. When the media says, "Oh, illegal aliens commit less crimes," well, you could say, "No, that's an absolute lie. They commit more crimes." The problem is nobody actually tracks it.
Yeah.
per capita, Ben. Per capita, that's the point. They say that
but per capita they commit more crimes.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely, far more. But the problem is in states like California and Illinois, they don't track it. They won't even separate out who's legal and who's not. Yeah. So when you get the statistics, you're looking at, you don't even know what you're looking at.
Right.
So that's part of it, is getting the actual accurate information and disseminating that to the people. But going back to a point I made earlier, one of the most important things we have to do is actually get real justice, not the fake justice where you label somebody a domestic terrorist and don't tell them why, but real justice where we prosecute organizations and individuals who are breaking our laws, who are undermining our country. And actually, I want to see people charged with treason and hung for treason. There's a reason why there's a death penalty for treason.
Do you think I hope it's going to happen. A lot of people are chomping at the bits, right? I know it takes time.
I won't feel comfortable until it does.
Yeah, me too.
And I'm not going to hold my breath. That's, I look at Pam Bondi and I'm hopeful in that. But the left has been so successful at winning, because all of this comes back to winning a battle in the arena of ideas with the American people. And so anything that you do, you have to have public support for it, and everything that, and it's just the way it is. And so when President Trump or any of these guys are looking at something, they're saying, okay, do we have public support from the people? And when you have still the masses of mainstream media that are lined up against you, when you have an entire education system that's lined up against you, when you have politics and local governments lined up against you, it's very difficult. And part of the only way we're going to win this is in 2 years or a year and a half, if we can get more seats in the House, get rid of more of the rhinos in the House and the Senate, and actually get MAGA in there to pass legislation, because it's not going to be done with executive order.
I think
President Trump's stopping the bleeding. He's putting a tourniquet on it through executive order right now. But we have to get MAGA people into office. Then you've got the cover to then say, Justice Department, go arrest Adam Schiff. Go arrest Gavin Newsom. Go arrest Governor Pritzker and Mayor Johnson. And we're going to try these guys because we actually have the backup to hold them accountable.
Yeah, I think what's happening, too, with respect to the mainstream media is what all of us are doing and the podcasts and stuff, right? So we're kind of creeping into their space pretty quickly.
Yeah. And by the way, we're in a much stronger position now than we were 4.5 years ago, even at the end of President Trump's term. The mainstream media was completely controlled by the left. Now you have networks like ours, Real America's Voice. You've got podcasts like yours. You've got social media. Think about the godsend that Elon Musk was. Who would have thought that Twitter, X, would have become one of the things that actually gave freedom back to the people? And whether you agree with him on everything, there's some of the stuff that I don't agree with Elon on. I love that he's on our side and in this fight. And man, God bless him. And you can tell who the left is the most afraid of by who they send their arrows at.
Yeah.
And so clearly they are afraid of President Trump. They're afraid of Elon Musk.
They're afraid of free speech.
Those are the guys we got to be backing up.
They're afraid of free speech. Here's what you do. Here's how it should work out. you get JD or whoever in, MAGA candidate as the next president, and then in between election day and January 20th of next year, Trump just cleans house because he's got nothing to lose. He can't run again. So there you go. You just make sure you get that Republican.
Look, I hope it happens before that, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much this nation can take, but
Yeah.
and in order for these things to be solidified into law over a long period of time,
Congress.
what I'm really praying for are a couple more Supreme Court seats. I mean, if we get, and again, not playing the gender, the DEI card of if we lose a female justice, we got to put Amy Coney Barrett on the seat.
Man,
It's like
disappointment.
pick the best person. If we can get one or two more Supreme Court justices, we've got a really good shot at turning this country back around.
What about the border? I mean, he's got to secure the border we can't have a situation where another Democrat administration
I know.
can open it up again like that.
I know. Well, that's really where you have to have the House and the Senate, because everything President Trump's doing on the border right now is through executive order.
Right.
And as soon as if you get a Democrat in there or a weak, George Bush style Republican in there, they can undo it overnight and basically do what you saw Joe Biden do, undo the Remain in Mexico policy the first day, stop building the wall, burn up American tax dollars. So you have to get a House and a Senate that will actually pass legislation that will solidify it into law. Now, they may still break the law. I mean, Joe Biden clearly broke the law.
Right.
Yeah.
He should be prosecuted. And, if we have any justice left in the world, he will be. And so will Barack Obama on multiple counts from Benghazi to the border and everything else. But at least having some of this legislation passed that makes it determines these things ongoing. That's the only way we have this into the future. I mean, the executive order just doesn't do it.
Think about, if you think back now, think about how lucky we are the way this whole process evolved, right? When Trump won the first time. I really think it was a blessing that he lost the second time. I really do.
I agree with a caveat. There's, I think and this is again, biblically, what the enemy means for evil, God uses for good. And I look at what we saw under Joe Biden. I think that woke up people that wouldn't have necessarily been awakened had he not done that. And you look at the inner city of Chicago and the inner cities of New York and places all across America where you have black communities rising up and saying, wait a second, Democrats aren't for us. They've been lying to us this whole time. There is a positive that came out of that. But the caveat is the destruction that came along with it. I mean, the lives that were lost, that have been lost in that we'll never get back.
Yeah.
But you're right. As a net, I think in some ways it had to happen.
Yeah.
It had to get that bad to wake the people up.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that. So yes, the bad things that happened, but you know what? If that didn't happen, I don't think any of the things he's doing now he would have done if he won last time.
I totally agree.
Well, that's the other part.
Pissed.
That's
He's
the other
pissed.
part.
I mean, if they wouldn't have put him through the hell, I was sitting in the courtroom when they were trying him in New York, and you've got these just scumbags, Letitia James, who should be in prison herself, and Braggs, who should be in prison himself. All these people. They thought they had President Trump. And I was there when the verdict was read, and all of these Democrats in New York voted saying, agreeing that he was guilty on all these counts. And you think about the fire that lit under President Trump. First, they steal the election from him.
Yeah.
Then they prosecute him for nothing. Then they put all the people that actually support America in prison. And then he still wins.
It's a miracle. It's a miracle.
And I think that mandate thing is real. I think that mandate thing is real. But not only that, it provided him a political power, political leverage that I think is unprecedented in political history. Given the multimedia technology and where it is now, and the ability with a podcast, with X, to reach people across the world, he is by far the most popular political figure in recorded history by technology alone. So that gives him an unprecedented mandate and an unprecedented power over the politicians in his own party. And hopefully, that equals legislation and policy that can't be reversed.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm very hopeful in that. And I also want to, challenge people to give these guys some space. We got to call them out when they make mistakes or do things that are wrong. But we also can't eat our own. The left is they're experts at circling the wagons. We tend to circle the firing squads, and we've got to call people out, but do it in love and say, hey, you're wrong. Unless they're a turncoat, they're a traitor, there's somebody who's
unless they're
who's
a
working for the other
Republican,
side.
unless they're a Republican leader in the state of Illinois.
Yeah, unless they're a rhino and they're a known rhino
yeah.
and they need to be defeated and removed from office, and we know who they are. But if there's somebody on our side, we know they're MAGA,
Yeah.
and they make a mistake, give them a little bit of breathing room, help bring them along, give them some wise counsel. But I'm with you 100%. MAGA is the solution. Rhinos of the past aren't. Democrats are a cancer to this nation. And if we continue, if we actually get the people in place, we actually pass the legislation, then we get a Supreme Court that can back that up. And then we get punishments for these criminals, everything from every layer of what was done under BLM. I mean, look at the lawlessness that we've allowed, that we've created in our own society, where you got a bunch of thugs across America who think it's okay to break the law and be, treated with no consequences because of the color of their skin. All of that has to be undone.
And they're celebrated. They're celebrated in some cases.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you can murder. You can murder someone. You can stab them in the chest, and you've got people on the left who will go out and raise them $500,000. It's upside down, but we're in the process of reversing that.
But
and I'm very hopeful that that's going to happen.
Ben, who is on that subject real quick, because I think it's important to call this out. Who do you think are some of the worst rhinos that are? Because I think it is important. I know sometimes it's not the favorite thing to name names, right? But I do think it's important to look at our own side and say, who is somebody that is not representative of this populist movement moving forward? Because we do have to draw some clear lines if we do want change.
Yeah, well, I mean, first off, even beyond his feeble nature, Mitch McConnell should have been gone a long time ago. I mean, this guy is doing more harm to the Republican Party. I'd say the same for Lindsey Graham. I don't trust him at all. He may say the right things, but he's
flip in a second.
He's not. I'd rather have him on the other side. There's guys like where I came from in California, David Valadeo, who is just a limp noodle. You've got people that are on our side who may vote the right way 95% of the time, or even 90% of the time, but they're just weak, and they will never stand up. And when it comes to important things like impeachment of President Trump, he voted with the Democrats. So you just look at their voting record, and if they're and I would even say, I don't even just want people that vote on our side. I want people who are vocal on our side.
Yeah,
people that are willing to stand up there, have a press conference, and tell you why they do what they do, not just pull a lever and go and hide in their office. We've got to have an entire delegation from top to bottom who say, I'm going to do this, and this is why. We need Marjorie Taylor Greens at every single level that are willing, and Matt Gaetz. I mean, what a shame. I really wish Matt was AG. God bless him, for a number of reasons. But that's the kind of people we need in the House, in the Senate, who are actually willing to go out there and say, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. I don't care if you scream. I don't care if you throw your temper tantrum. You can come to my meetings, and we're going to tase your ass and send your ass out, or send you to jail. Well, that's what we need. We need leaders who aren't afraid to stand up and actually say what needs to be done, and actually then go out and confront this. All of these idiots screaming in the streets, they need to be confronted. They need to be called out.
It's necessary for the culture war. It's necessary for the culture war.
Oh, yeah, 100%. We have to battle back. We can't just vote and then be silent. We have to have vocal people on our side to counteract the screaming lunatics on the left.
So in the time we have left, I want to talk about the event that you're coming to Chicago for, April 30th, Save Illinois Coalition. So we're going to have you, me, and Ann talk about from the border to the backyard of Chicago, basically. Yeah. All the stuff that you guys covered, at the Darien Gap, at the border, as well as in Chicago and other cities, right? But we're going to focus on Chicago, and I think it's important for people to understand what's coming here, just like what we showed those little clips, and the danger that's ahead, and all the money and the corruption that's going to be tied, and it's going to make our city and state much, 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 much more worse. What I want to do, I know we're going to meet up before. We're going to go and see some of the new developments since you were gone, right? So a lot of the shelters closed. That 73rd Street is still open. We'll go there for our third or fourth time. And we'll go visit that. And I think I told you one of my friends said the fire department was there, birthing people there, they're having Venezuelan babies in that place.
Of course they are.
Birthing people.
And then they have the
Yeah. Well, at first I wasn't sure if you were talking about a transgender or an illegal.
No.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
What are you feeling okay?
Yeah, no, I didn't mean that. Sorry. Yeah.
What pronouns are we using tonight?
They're coming
Look,
after
I'm
us
looking forward to it. By
hardcore
the way,
out here.
Yeah, by the way, if you guys haven't got your tickets yet, you need to do it. It's going to be an amazing event, April 30th. I'm coming up. We're going to have a blast. And really, it's about action. What do we do to save this country? What do you do in your own personal lives and locally, exposing some of this? I hope we get to run into Pritzker and to Johnson again. That was some of the most fun we've had in a while. But it's about equipping people. First, what's actually what's happened. So we have to know our history, what's happening now, and what needs to be done in order to move forward and save this country. So it's going to be an amazing event. I'm looking forward to it. And in the meantime, kind of going back to your point, people think that President Trump's in there, all this has been fixed. They don't realize that billions of dollars were already given to these NGOs to house and protect these illegal aliens. Yeah. And most of them are still being done. It's still being done. Now, some of them moved, some of them shut down, some of them, they've basically made it more efficient and they've shrunk down the size. But a lot of the illegals just left because they were worried that they're going to be picked up. So now they've just blended into society. And now we've got to go find them in those communities later. So a lot to talk about, a lot to get caught up on, and more new operations that we're working on with ICE and what's happening next in that. So, it's going to be an awesome event.
Ben, I'll let Paul describe this quickly to you. The feds just arrested a few blocks from Paul's house. Go ahead. Why don't you tell him the news story?
Yeah. So I'm curious. This is early on in our investigation, but this guy was running, looked like some sort of shell company. Venezuelan guy. He, lived in the affluent suburb that we live in here, Downers Grove, and he was advertising that he was helping immigrants get visas,
the U visa,
seek asylum, things of this nature, and we looked up his company, and the website was bunk.
He's not even an attorney.
He falsified documents about being an attorney. He had told people in the area that he worked for the government. And I'm just wondering if we look into this more, if we don't find out that, he was getting funneled money through NGOs to help illegals.
No doubt. Look, I don't even know the story.
Speaking of treason, though, Ben, that's what I'm trying to get
No doubt.
at.
Yeah. Because these Venezuelans don't have the money, right? And the U visa program, and I might have told you this before, in Illinois, they have the U visa program. So say a woman says, a Venezuelan, I was raped 6 months ago, right? She files it with the police. This guy helps her. Mm-hmm. It was right in the document, the DOJ document about U visa.
And where is that illegal getting the money from to pay for those services?
And then they automatically, somebody like this guy's organization reviews her paperwork, right? Not the police. She just files with the police. Then he reviews the paperwork that he sends it to the government. Oh, yeah, she was sexually assaulted. We got to keep her here for 4 years in case there's a court appearance where they need her to testify. And then in some cases, they turn it into green cards and other. Yeah. And so this guy was doing it for a bunch of Venezuelans.
Well, interestingly, the whole he got busted for false documentation, too. So he was very skilled
this has been going on. This has been going on for decades, since the sanctuary movement started in Chicago. It's why organizations like El Otro Lado out of San Diego and LA are down training illegals on how to game our immigration laws in Mexico. There are multiple organizations. They look for anybody that they can help or they can find help their cause. And they're to the point where we caught that organization creating fake marriages, fake marriage documents in Mexico. They ended up getting busted for it because of our reporting. This was 7 years ago, but this is going on. As anything you can imagine that they would possibly do to game the system, I guarantee you they're doing it, and they're probably doing it in mass. Yeah. So there's that, and that's that's going back to the way we fix this. The only way we fix this is to prosecute those people.
That was what I was trying to get at, Ben. Was like when we're looking into this, but like I look at this was a very organized guy. Bought a house. Driving Teslas around, says he works for the government. Like, this has to be government operated behind the scenes. Right. And there has to be somebody that needs, I'm sure we're in a good position with Elon Musk because he can find this stuff out. with those people.
Well,
that
and
are
most
working
of
for
it,
'em.
when it comes to grants, it's public information. Just
Right.
again, going back to the example of El Otro Lado, their grants were signed off directly by Chuck Schumer, and you can actually go find those documents, the IRS documents. So, yes, and to me, this is one of the most important things we have to have in order to make the prosecutions and make the arrests. You have to have the investigations, and what we need to do, same thing that needs to happen in Mexico. You can cut the heads off the snakes of the cartel, but until you actually get the bankers and the money guys, and you follow that money up the trail up to where it leads to the politicians, then you've got nothing. And so the same thing needs to happen. Okay, who was signing off on the grants? Who were those people? Who was that money going to? And who was getting a kickback from that in order to create this illegal activity? And ultimately, what you're going to end up having is a massive, massive RICO case. That's what we have. We have a RICO, illegal alien syndicate,
That
basically.
sounds
It's
like a
the
good
cartel of illegal immigration. And it ties to, its web goes out to all kinds of other crimes. So you've got to figure out and hone in on the crimes that you want to go after. But that's what it is. This is a massive RICO case.
Yeah, it is.
Is Trump going to war with the cartels?
Yes, but with the caveat, what's happening in Mexico right now is basically a reorganization of the cartels. It's similar to what we had in the 1980s and 90s, where you had the president of the country go after certain cartels, but then protect other ones. You've got the same thing happening now. President is protecting El Mayo, going after these other cartels, the rivals El Mayo, the Chapitos, where we were just down in Sinaloa. And so what it looks like is a consolidation of power, where you're taking some of the smaller cartels, you're getting rid of them, you're making it look like you're taking them out, but you're still leaving certain groups in positions of power to then rebuild from there. And so that's what's happening, appears to be happening in Mexico. President Trump, whether or not I think he's doing everything he can to undermine that. But until I see prosecutions of Mexican officials and until I see prosecutions of American officials, I won't trust that it's happening, because otherwise you just create a power vacuum. You got new people to come up and take the power and do the same thing over again. Mm-hmm. We end up in the same position, even worse in 12 years.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I know you're on the road, so go spend time with your family. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this, and we look forward to having you come up to Chicago again.
My pleasure. And where do people go to get those tickets? Because I want to see everybody there.
They go Save Illinois Coalition, SaveIllinoisCoalition.com. It'll pop up there to buy. They're only $20, and it's all you can eat buffet.
Deal.
And we're gonna show some.
Hey, you know I'm eating too, right?
They actually got pretty good food. We got big screens, so I got to get video from you beforehand because
you'll have it all. You guys will have exclusive footage. Yeah. I'll walk you through it. It'll be the best border presentation you've ever seen. No doubt.
Bring your rape kit and your little shoe things you brought it.
Hey, don't blow the secrets, man. Come on.
Sorry. Thanks, man.
Hey, thanks for coming on, man.
All right, guys. Have a great night.
Thanks. Yeah, that guy's doing terrific work, man. Like a one-man army, and he puts his life at risk all the time. All the time.
Darien Gap was,
and it's gonna be. We're gonna have a good time. And like with Ann, me, Ben talking about how this all ties together from the border up to Chicago. And then another important element we didn't talk too much about is the Chicago Red folks are going to be there. We're going to have a couple Hispanic pastors from the city of Chicago talking about how it's affecting their community, right? We don't have money. Chicago, Illinois, we don't have money, right? Even the country, we're borrowing money, and we're giving this to these people that don't belong in our
governor has money.
Our country. And so we're going to hear from these people. I was on the phone with these couple pastors today, and they're telling me how the Tren de Aragua guys are going asking for protection from the Hispanic community, even people that had businesses before these guys came here. So this is going to create a lot of animosity and hopefully get people on our side to help get these petitions to try to get the referendum on the 2026 ballot in Illinois to remove sanctuary state status from the state of Illinois. In the city of Chicago, we're going to try to get the 2026 petition, the signatures, it's only 52,000 for the state, so that they will say no funds, no tax dollars will go towards illegal immigrants. So that's our goal. It's to wake people up. It's to unify, bipartisan, low income, high income, black, white, Italian. What are you?
Mutt.
Yeah. So that's the goal. You want anything else you want to say in the end here?
No, I mean, I think people have to wake up. It's about to get a lot worse. We just lost, like, I mean, it's a communist state, Illinois at this point.
Behind enemy lines.
We got crushed in the elections, and Pritzker dumped millions in to the local areas because he's probably going to run for president. So he wanted total control in Illinois to implement a progressive agenda. So it's going to get crazy. It's going to get real bad. So people need to wake up and get to the voting booth. And one last thing for Republicans, vote by mail doesn't matter if you don't vote, period.
Yeah.
Like, vote by mail is not why you lost. You lost because you had 16% turnout or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Like, wake up, man. I mean, it's ridiculous that you think vote by mail is a priority over, like, getting candidates that people on the right will actually, or the populist, MAGA would vote for.
Yeah.
Like, vote by mail is not why you lost. It's not why you lost. It's because you don't have any candidates, and the Republicans have no power or no message or no fight. So,
well, shit. Well, thank you, everybody. He actually let me hit something here. We'll see you next Tuesday, Thursday, and on April 30th. If you didn't buy your tickets, please go to SaveIllinoisCoalition.com and buy your tickets.